Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how to scrape Google News in only a few minutes by using the SerpApi library. If you've ever thought about building an app that displays the latest headlines or creating a tool that monitors news stories, this guide will walk you through everything you need to get started. What we'll do first is retrieve the front page news stories, then also grab the top news headlines from different categories such as business, technology, sports, and more. As usual, we should install and import the required libraries, dotenv and SerpApi. Once that's done, create an index.js file from the root of your project. Before I forget, we also need to copy our API key from the dashboard into our .env file. Now that we've imported the libraries and we have access to the API key, all we need to do is call getJSON, which is the imported function from the SerpApi library. GetJSON is an asynchronous function that takes in an object of parameters that we want to search with. The only required parameters for this getJSON function is API key and engine. SerpApi has tons of other APIs for different types of Google search results, such as Google Maps or Google Shopping. But since we're trying to retrieve Google News today, our engine will be assigned the value of Google News. Because I also want to narrow down my search to news relevant to people in Canada, I'll assign the value GL for geographic location to Canada and HL for language to English. By the way, for a complete listing of all the optional parameters that are available, check out the documentation, which I'm going to link in the description below. All right, now it's time to see what we get back from the API. Before we run the script though, we should print out the result. We'll call this top news since this is the front page news of the day. And we'll console log it to see what we get. Actually, one more thing. I'm also going to install the package JSON Colorizer so that the result in the terminal is color-coded and a little bit more readable. If everything goes smoothly, you should be able to see something similar to this in your terminal. The response will resemble data that you see on Google's user interface when you go to news.google.com. As you can see here, the news results property contains an array of the front page news headlines. For the sake of readability, let's print out only the title and source from the news results array. Now, there are two types of news in the news results array. Some items will be highlights, which means they're a collection of sources about the same issue. Others will simply just be one article. So what we need to do first is check to see if it has a highlight property and then get the title from there. Otherwise, just print out the title of the article. By the way, if you want to play around with this API yourself, I'll link the online playground in the description for you to check out. Important side note, we also have a lightweight version of this API called Google News Lite. If you don't need rich details about the news source, such as alternate thumbnails or the author's full names, then you should try Google News Lite. This API only returns the critical data related to the news article, but within a fraction of the time it takes the original API. Now back to the tutorial. All right, now that we've got the top headlines of the day, let's also grab the top headlines for each news category. In order to do this, we're going to use the topic token, which can be found inside the menu links array in our original JSON response. This array stores the title and the unique ID for each news category. What we're going to do is make a separate API call to each of these categories using their topic token in order to grab the top headlines under that category. To ensure that we don't make too many API calls, let's just limit ourselves to 5 news categories. We'll do health, science, sports, entertainment, and technology. I'm going to store the title and topic token into an object called categories for each of the categories. I'm hard coding the data here, but of course you can do this programmatically. Now let's loop through these 5 categories and make an API call to each one to grab the top headlines for that category. This is exactly the same as our first API call. The only difference is that now we also need to assign the parameter topic token, which uniquely identifies the category of news that we want to retrieve. And since we have an array of promises, we're also going to have to use Promise.all in order to wait for all of the API calls to complete. So let's console log what we get from the API. And let's try running it. It looks like we've got data from our different news categories, but there are a ton of headlines returned. So for the sake of readability, let's just print out the first 5 headlines for each category. So I'm going to loop through each of the 5 categories and first print out the category title. Next, let's take those headlines that belong to each category and we'll just slice the first 5 results. Again, we'll first check to see if this headline is a highlight and has the highlight property. And if so, print highlight.title. Otherwise, simply print the title of the headline. And for readability, I'm going to add a few line breaks in between each category. And now, as you can see, we've got the top headlines of the day from each category straight from Google. SerpApi makes pulling data from the web insanely easy, and you no longer have to waste time dealing with Google's changing layouts, getting IP blocked, or solving CAPTCHAs. If you have any questions at all, feel free to leave me a comment below or contact us at contact@serpapi.com. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you found this video helpful. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.